I remember leaning down to pull the comforter toward me. I even remember seeing my wife laying her head on some shirtless guy's chest. The next thing I remember was Becca, Mari, and some half-naked guy I've never seen before trying to pull me off him. Welcome back to They Did What? Your source for the internet's craziest, most entertaining stories, where I go over them, analyze them, and most certainly make fun of them. Today, going to go over a story titled, My Life is a Wreck. And guys, this story is part one of a 5-part mini-series about this guy who eventually goes scorched earth on his wife after what starts as him walking in on her with some other dude, to him finding about all these things about her past, his family, all that. Because this is a guy who, like many, thought he was in a great marriage, was happy, all that, and then found out what was really going on. So like I said, this is part one of a 5-part series, and as you can see, this is a long video. So for those of you that enjoy long stories on the drive to work, or the drive home, or when you're on the treadmill at the gym, you will enjoy this because it's definitely, you get your money's worth on entertainment. And this first part is how it all starts and where things go, and I think you guys will definitely enjoy this. So I will try to have minimal commentary because this is a longer story, so I'm going to jump right into it now. Starts off, it says, I guess to begin, I need to explain that I'm typing this in a hospital room. Yesterday, about 7:30 in the morning, my wife and I were involved in a wreck. I came out with only a few cuts and bruises. Mari, my wife, suffered a crushed shoulder, broken collarbone, 3 broken ribs, and a collapsed lung. They expect her to fully recover, but for now, they have her heavily sedated. Having to type this out on the phone is a daunting task. But at the moment, I have the time to push through it, even though I'm not sure I have the will to do it. I wouldn't be posting it in a sub if things were perfect with our marriage. I just never could imagine my wife being unfaithful in any way. My heart is broken. I feel incomplete, like part of me is missing. And saddest of all, that part is sitting a mere 3 feet away from me. So obviously this guy is a Redditor and likes to read this stuff because now he's writing his story when this has begun. And for many, it's like therapy to them. I'd felt us growing apart over the last 3 months, but I couldn't come up with a reason why. We're both 34. Mari and I had known each other since we were children. We began dating in high school and all the way through college. She is the only woman I've ever done anything with of a physical nature with. Up until recently, she could say the same. We married a year out of college and had our first child, Michael, a year later. Smack! Married a year out of college, you're out of your freaking mind. I don't care how in love you are. You need time, years, to be with someone, to really get to know them, because he obviously didn't really get to know her. And establish yourself in your career, save money, get experience, and so on and so forth. And this story will prove once again my point. She's the only woman I've ever been with, blah, blah, blah. 3 years after that, my son was born. 3 years after my son was born, Carrie, our daughter, began a life of me trying to spoil her rotten. I love my kids more than life itself. If not for them, I'm not sure I would be here right now. They were not involved in the wreck, thank God. They were spending the night at my parents'. We were due to fly down to Florida for a cruise yesterday afternoon. Obviously, that is all canceled. But my wife decided to go out with her best friend, even though I urged her to get home and not drive around the snow. She swore she and her best friend, Rebecca, were just going to have a few drinks since they wouldn't see each other for a week. I went to bed and slept like a baby until 5 a.m. It's snowing, and they're going to go out and have drinks? How freaking stupid and careless is that? That guy shouldn't have allowed that. I got up and looked out the window to see my wife's car was not there. But we'd gotten several more inches of snow. I assume Mari and Beck had got a little too drunk and crashed to her place. I threw some clothes on, got into my SUV. Before I left, I texted Mari to tell her not to drive, that the snow was too deep and I was coming to get her. It remained on red. I cannot guess how many times I wondered what would have happened if she'd read that text. I'd still be living a lie. I still have a gut feeling, but I wouldn't be the utter misery I find myself in now. I got to Becca's and pulled up in front of her condo. I looked at the message again and still had not been read. I had actually hoped Mari would read it and be ready when I arrived. But I resigned myself to the fact that I'd have to go in and wake her. The front door was unlocked, so I walked in and looked at the TV room to my right. Unlocked? Who leaves their doors unlocked? Unless they're drunk. There was nobody passed out on the sofa. Rebecca's bedroom was downstairs, and I didn't want to wake her. So I took the stairs up to her guest room and opened the door. Then my life ended. I remember walking into the room and seeing two heads peeking out from the covers. I remember leaning down to pull the comforter toward me. I remember seeing my wife laying her head on some guy's shirtless chest. The next thing I remember was Becca, Mari, and some half-naked guy I'd never seen trying to pull me off of him. I'd probably be in jail right now if they hadn't, but I honestly didn't remember a damn thing. So right or wrong, I don't feel bad about all that. My wife, on the other hand, well, that changes from minute to minute these days. When I came to my senses, the dude said he'd get his buddy to the hospital. Mari bawled her eyes out while Rebecca and I screamed it out. I told her and my wife I was leaving, and she had 5 minutes to be in the car and not bother coming down. She was there in 3. So, the whole we're going out drinking thing was cover for her to be out with some dudes cheating. And her friend is an active participant, letting her cheat in her house all the time, knowing that obviously she's married, has kids, and all that. And she's screaming at this guy here. But this guy beat the crap out of the guy that was nailing his wife. But wait till you see what happens next. It's really not a good idea to be angry driving in the snow, even with a 4-wheel drive. But it was another vehicle that veered into our lane and forced us through the guardrail. That's what caused Mari's injuries. The car rolled, thank God for airbags. But we lived. The kids don't even know we had a wreck. I haven't called anyone, I probably should have, but this just wasn't a wreck. My life has been wrecked, and I'm trying to gauge the damage before I start bringing others into the situation. I'm numb right now, and yet I hurt like hell, and not from the wreck. I feel like I don't even know the person laying in that hospital bed. I want to ask her so many damn questions, but I really don't want to know any of the answers. She obviously no longer loves me. No one with a soul could cheat on someone they love. So I have to ask her if she ever loved me. And now that she cheated, would I ever want her to love me again, if it were possible? Hell no. I don't know the specifics of when she first cheated, but in my book, the instant she did, our marriage ended. The vows were broken. She ended our marriage, and we are no longer man and wife. I don't need a divorce attorney to nullify my marriage. She's already done that. Therefore, I'm no longer under obligation to the vows I gave. A huge part of me wants to just walk out of this room. I want to call her parents, tell them what she did and what happened, and then let them know that she is their problem again after all these years. We said for better or worse, and I meant it. But we are no longer married. Part of me wants her to leave her a note and tell her, too bad, worse happened, to come after she ended our relationship. The only thing that's keeping me in this damn room is my children. I want to see them so badly right now, but I have some scratches on my face and neck. They know something that happened if they saw me. As much as I feel my wife has defiled herself and our family, my kids need her. Although I had a life partner, and as horrible as she ended up being, my children need a mom in their life. There are going to be talks I'm not qualified to have and wouldn't know where to begin. There are going to be injuries that need kisses instead of being told to walk it off. I'm a damn good father, but I can't be a mother too. Please, someone help me. How can I sit here and look over someone who stabbed me in the back so cruelly? Should I call her parents to come? What do I tell them? I really don't want to be here, especially with her parents. If I don't tell them what she did, they are going to know I'm pissed off. What in God's name do I tell my children? Yeah, I can tell them we were in a wreck, but I'm not that kind of a fake emotion. Obviously, my wife does it with ease, but when I loathe someone, it shows in my face. They will know I'm angry at their mother. How the hell did my life come to this? I already know I need to see a lawyer. I figured that much out as much. But how do I handle this? It took so long to get approval that I did not think my post had posted. I just started getting notifications, blah, blah, blah. So now he's going to have a little update here. So you guys, relationship guys that have been cheated on, you can probably obviously, understand what this guy's going through. And it's a damn shame because obviously this guy's a good guy, loyal. The vows meant something to him, but not her. And it's bad enough she's cheating, but also the fact that the friend is helping her, right? This goes to show you got to pay attention who your wife or girlfriend hangs out with. This is a common theme in these stories. Now for a little update, he says here, for whatever reason, I could not respond to questions from my first post. It may have something to do with this being a throwaway account, but I could reply to comments, but nobody could see the replies but me. I tried posting this update in the infidelity sub last night, but had issues. Hopefully the same glitch does not happen, blah, blah, blah. He says, After my initial post that day, I decided to stay one more night in the hospital room. With the Mari sedated and the lights out, I laid back in the recliner looking at the ceiling, listened to the medical machines. I lay there wondering how the hell my life had reached that point. Part of me felt like I was giving her undeserved mercy just being in the same room, yet part of me loved her. I didn't want to feel that love. I actually felt weak for having any positive feelings for her. Over and over in my mind, I kept realizing there was no fixed things back there the way they were. It was as if some natural disaster had taken the life we built and destroyed it. I cried. I cried so damn hard. I realized a huge part of my life was over. That was a moment of huge significance in my life. Dude, you're human. But just don't let her see you cry. Don't let her or any of her friends or anybody else let you, do it on your own. But then you let it out and you move on and you formulate your plan. When the nurse came in the room to take blood the next morning, I excused myself. When Mari woke, she saw me heading out the door and called to me, but I acted like I didn't hear her. I went and got some breakfast. I haven't had much of an appetite since finding out. I tried to off some time eating and scanning through my phone. There was a text from Becca asking where Mari was that I left unread. I decided at 7 o'clock in the morning it was late enough to knock on her parents' door. Oh boy, he's telling the parents, or the in-laws. Her dad was always an early riser. I planned to talk to him first, and if he thought his wife needed to hear it, he would wake her. I saw smoke coming from the wood stove in his workshop out back, so I knocked on the door before entering. He saw the scratches on my neck and bruises on my cheek. I explained they had been in an accident. Mari had gotten the worst of it, but we needed to talk. I think he assumed I meant about the accident, so he woke my mother-in-law to hear what I had to say. Oh boy. A lot of these stories, the father-in-law is always apologetic for the daughter's actions, and it's usually the mother-in-law, that tries to find a way to justify her actions. We sat in the kitchen as I explained how going around a curve, a car in the oncoming lane veered into our lane. Having a heavier vehicle and all-wheel drive, I managed to keep us on the road until we hit the guardrail. The passenger side door caught one of the vertical I-beams mounted in concrete. Even with the side airbags, Mari hit hard. She sustained lots of injuries, but I told them she was stable and they expected a full recovery. They both cried knowing their daughter had suffered but would be around for them to love. As soon as they insinuated they'd be around to help me in any way, the need to assist, that was when I stopped them and explained the wreck wasn't what I'd come to tell them. They looked confused as I explained waking up that morning and sending a text to head off in the snow to make sure my wife was okay. I told them about walking in on their daughter and some guy I'd never seen unconsciously beating him over and over. They were both shocked. Imagine the being a fly on that wall and that whole conversation went down. Then I told them what room she was in at the hospital. Explained I always wanted them to be a part of the kids' lives, so I hoped they could remain friendly with me. I told them my dad was looking after them at the moment, but I was divorcing their daughter as she had broken our vows and was no longer my wife. Good for you, man. No messing around like a lot of guys would, right? That's it, we're done. And going right to the in-laws like an honorable guy and saying, here's the deal. I still hope we're in good relations. The grandkids need you. But she and I are done. Good for him. I was leaving their place and driving to my dad's to tell the kids about the wreck. I was also going to tell them we were splitting up and wouldn't be together anymore. I wasn't going to tell them that their mother is a cheater. I told my former in-laws that while I hated things had to end that way, they did at least say I wasn't the one who destroyed the marriage and my life. They tried to tell me I shouldn't be so hasty. Of course they said that. This is the sweet and innocent little girl. Don't be so hasty. Bullshit. She made a mistake and the usual lame excuses. I just smiled and told them I love having them as in-laws over the years and walked out. Good. Don't argue with them. It's done. When I got to my dad's, I of course had so much I needed to get off my chest. I entered through the kitchen and where I found my dad having a cup of coffee. The only thing he knew was that I was supposed to be on a big boat in the Caribbean. He stood and asked what I was doing there. I just grabbed him, hugged him, and cried like a child. It was the kind of thing where he really wanted to know what was going on, and since he needed to let me cry, cried out before prying. He led me to the den and sat me on the couch to go get my mom. We both urged her to have a cup of coffee first. But she knew if I was there alone that early, I had something bad to tell them. I first explained about Mari cheating and catching her and leaving Becca's. Then I explained about the wreck, that it was pretty bad. I told them about Mari's injuries and explained that I let her parents know only an hour before so they could go see her. Both of my parents were stunned. My mom finally asked me what I'm going to do now. They both cried when I told them that the only remaining option was to divorce Mari and be the best father I could for my children. I think even though they obviously understand where their son's coming from, still their whole worldview of their daughter-in-law and the whole thing, that obviously got them emotional. And they don't want to see their grandkids upset. As our conversation was winding down, I heard my daughter Carrie squeal, "Daddy," and come running down the stairs toward me. That woke up my son, who was also downstairs with a few minutes. I hadn't seen them in so long, I just spent time hugging them, happy to see them. They took a while to notice my scratches. I told them about the wreck and that their mommy was in the hospital, but going to be fine. I told them Mari's parents would eventually pick them up to take them to see their mom, and I left it at that. I spent a day playing, talking to, holding, napping with, and laughing with my children, and those two made me want to live again. Good, man. You should not want to off yourself because of what she, the soon-to-be ex-wife, did to you. And it takes a hell of a lot of strength for him to just bury all that shit deep down and play with the kids and act like nothing's going on. Obviously, the kids are going to find out, but at the moment. Until that point, if I'm honest, I was like 50-50 about wanting to go on. But they are worth living for, protecting and cherishing. My wife's phone was destroyed in the wreck, so nobody had gotten a response for days. Earlier that night, I started getting texts from my mother-in-law's phone and knew they had to be from Mari. I ignored them. They continued sporadically off and on throughout the night. I turned off the notifications. Done. He doesn't need to talk to her at all. And I love the fact that her freaking friend, Becca, call her Bitcha, was texting him to see what was going on. I wouldn't give her a response. I'm glad he didn't. He doesn't need to respond to her anymore. We're done, sweetheart. Now watch as our man here starts getting the lawyers involved real quick while she's out of commission in the hospital. The next day, I spoke with 3 law offices about filing for divorce. I can't say I want or even need a legal divorce, but that will divide assets and determine custody of our children. What she does with who is no longer any concern of mine. I met with 2 that I liked, and the latter won quite a bit. I'll meet with a third-rated lawyer to see if he wows me. If not, I'm going with the second firm's top divorce attorney. Either way, I will have removed 3 top legal sources from her list of candidates. Smart move. I believe that the law is once you talk to an attorney about your situation, even if you don't hire him, that means the wife can't go to them either. I believe that's the situation. And that's a win in my book. Custody is my primary focus. I'm not going for full custody, and I wouldn't want it even if I got it. They need their mother in their lives. But because she did what she did, she can never again be part of my life. A go-between can drop the kids off time to time whenever they need to be, or wherever they need to be. Not a reason in this world for me to ever say another word to her. I obviously never knew her, so why would I continue to interact with a stranger? Exactly. Why do you need to interact with her? And yeah, I would make sure all communication is written, where you can have a record of it by email or text or through an attorney. I go back to work next week from what would have been our cruise. I didn't tell a soul at work we didn't go on it or anything about the wreck. And of course, they'll be seeing me driving the rental car and question if I got a new car. I'm not sure if I need to explain things to HR, but I don't want my personal business to be aired out for all to see. I feel humiliated as it without leaking news out. Divorce is a necessity sometimes, but it always represents a failure. But I'm done being the anchor for a ship that has already sunk. And for those who insisted rightly to get checked for STDs, I've had a full screening. It came back clean on everything. Thank God. Yeah, man, thank God. And yeah, don't mention this to your co-workers. None of their freaking business. And it'll be gossip central otherwise. Even that was enough to make me feel like some trenchcoat pervert when I did nothing wrong. I assume by this time Mari has left the hospital. Her parents did not even attempt to bring her to the house. They couldn't have contacted me anyway due to Mari's constant texts I wasn't reading. As soon as I get the divorce papers filed and her served, I can be done with the biggest mistake of my life. Her actions invalidated all that time. If I had to do it over again, I would not do it at all. I would choose a life with someone else, anyone else who would be actually faithful and loyal. Her greatest asset is what she intentionally threw away. The ability to be trusted. From having someone to call your own to being all alone. That's what I'll miss. But I know it was all a lie and I meant nothing to her. People will swoon over a beautiful lie and repel the ugly truth. I'm not the one of those people. A lot of people want the dirty details of who my wife strayed with, why, and how long it had been going on. I'm sorry I don't have that information to share, but I really don't want to know. Outside the person literally putting a gun to your head, there's no excuse to cheat. Beyond that, when you have made a life bond and you have sworn to uphold and make the decision for each other person to ruin it, you are vile. I wish to God I never met her and had taken a chance on anyone else. She had no right to give me a life and then take that away from me against my will. The man I was before her betrayal will never exist again. The woman she was never existed, and the life I had was a facade in ruins nobody wants to live in. So guys, that is the end of part 1, and I know you guys are like, I want to hear part 2, SSM. Well, that'll come tomorrow, because otherwise I'll be here for another 20 minutes. That's just too darn long for this channel. So guys, this is just getting things started. As you're going to see, when more and more details come about her, what she's been doing, and if it was just this one time with this guy, which I'm sure you can tell by the tone of my voice, or maybe something I said earlier that I forget, guess you'll see what happens. And how this guy definitely finds out more details about her, and eventually he starts going scorched earth. Very entertaining. So, but it's a shame that this poor guy went through this, and he obviously, as I read it, you guys can see a lot of mistakes that he obviously made both earlier in life and presently with regards to her. But at the end of the day, she's an a-hole, and she's going to have it all coming what happens to her. But I definitely got to mention the part again in the beginning, how he got married right out of college. Big freaking mistake. Too freaking young. That old-fashioned crap, that doesn't work anymore. End of story. Especially the level of, or the even greater lack of maturity nowadays with modern gals, particularly in their teens and 20s and all that. It's just not the same as our grandparents' generation, because my mom told me, like, when she graduated high school in the early 60s, in my small town in Pennsylvania, it was quite common. People would get married 19 years old right out of high school. They got a job in construction or a factory, because not everybody went off to college back then. Different ball game. But the level of maturity was night and day back then. But nowadays, in today's world, not a chance in hell. Anyway, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And I will have part 2 up tomorrow. That will get things really rolling here. And also, guys, I've said before, you come across a good story you'd like to share, by all means, email it to me, strongsuccessfulmale@gmail.com. Or if it's a Reddit story or something you found online, or a crazy article, or something from your personal life, let me know. Write it out really well, and I'll cover it down the road. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.